one of those?
Sure.
You do?
Just like it.
No, like on the back door.
Oh, yeah. That's right. You're my little queen. My princess.
Most of it, a portion of it, so the section, the east section is not, it's replica, you can't tell. It all looks the same. I think. Sorry? Pictures all good, yeah. Very nice. You can see out into the gardens from here. That's interesting, the speed ball. I didn't know that before.
Erica. What's that? That's the tower. What's that?
I don't know.
Oh, is that the one that burnt down?
Maybe.
Look at the little pilgrim badges.
Oh, yes.
That's amazing. Polyhedral dial. I'm not sure if it's still around. Replica at London Bridge. You can go visit, or not sure if it's still
So are there a lot of secret passages and things?
I think there are definitely kind of hidden doors that would have either connected places.
Right.
Like actually we saw
In that
through there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say most of the state apartments you've got like one or two at least.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Do you enjoy it? Is Mum still in there?
Oh yeah.
Now, did your wife say she was a curator of paintings?
Correct.
Right, so our Cumberland Art Gallery with all the lovely art in is closed off today.
Oh.
But if she really wants to go in there, I can find out if somebody will open it up and take you through.
Right.
So I can make that, I can find out for you if you can go in there today, as that's what she does. So I'll make inquiries for you at the end of your tour.
Okay.
Okay, if she really wants to do that.
Yeah.
It would seem silly coming here as a curator if you're not seeing some beautiful paintings from the Royal Collection.
Right. Well, she'll be back here again in
Okay.
London, and
Right.
especially since she's doing this exhibit, she'll be
Okay.
going to catacombs and things like that.
Thing is though, it's very expensive to come into Hampton Court, then you should travel from London, so I'll ask her, and if
All right.
that's something she would like
Well,
to
she
do,
for
I'll
sure
try and
would.
arrange it for
She
you.
for sure
Okay?
would. Beautiful garden.
This is the garden they recently used for Netflix Bridgerton.
Okay.
Now, in Henry VIII's time, the palace was so large. In this garden, you're going to see a lovely painting of it when I take you upstairs. This would have been full of Tudor buildings.
Oh, okay.
And on the other side of those golden gates at the back, you've got the River Thames. So this was all changed in 1689. A gardener from Versailles called Daniel Moreau came over here and he laid out the garden for King William. And Henry's buildings had all been knocked down by then to build the newer Baroque part of the palace. So a lot of history, but I am going to take you up to William's apartments to finish your tour, and I'm going to tell you about a fire we had up there in 1986, and after that fire they decided to restore this garden to its former glory, because no royals were living here from 1760, and this garden became literally much different to how it looked when King William was here. So they made that decision to restore that garden, and now it makes us lots of money. Because lots of film crews want to use it.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, didn't realise you were there hogging the whole space. You can also get a nice look at the garden like to the light. It's like Disney, isn't it? It's like looking into a painting. You can't believe you can go outside and walk through there.
I'm amazed by all the earth that was moved by hand and.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot to look at in there.
I was just saying to your husband, this is the lovely garden that Netflix recently used for filming Bridgerton. However, way back in Henry's time, this would have been full of buildings. So I'm going to tell you more as we progress.
Okay.
There's a lovely painting upstairs that shows the palace from the river. So the river is where those golden gates are at the back, the River Thames,
Yes.
which shows the palace in the 1660s, still Tudor, before King William and Queen Mary got here. And Sir Christopher Wren did the alterations. Now, I was saying to your husband, the art gallery here today, the Cumberland Art Gallery, featuring a lot of lovely paintings from the Royal Collection, is actually closed due to lack of staff. But they said to us, if we have anybody that comes here and is interested in going in there, they can do a private walkthrough for you. Is that something you would like to do?
Of course.
I will try and arrange that after your tour with management.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
We've been told that's what we need to do.
That's all the concession.
Okay.
Very generous.
So you've left the Tudors now, and you can see how money was tight, and you go straight from Wolsey's apartments down a baroque staircase. These are all busts brought in for us of Henry and his children. And as you walk along here, you see the lead up to King William's sumptuous apartments. Now, this is used for lots of TV programmes, lots of films. Johnny Depp's run down here twice. Do you watch a series in America called The Great? It's about Peter the Great.
Yes.
Ella Fanning and Nicholas Hoult, and I wish I was in that day. He's gorgeous. Come down this staircase, and they also did a lot of filming in the other garden round the front.
Oh, fantastic.
So lots of brides pay us a lot of money to have their wedding pictures taken on this staircase.
Sure.
And this is very different to what you see in the Tudor route. Now, the fresco was becoming very, very popular. Ever heard of an artist called Antonio Verrio?
Yes.
He was Italian. William had to give him special permission because he was Catholic to paint here. We put 8 very accessories. He did a lot of Windsor Castle, but they've been, literally eradicated by new monarchs that have come to the throne. And believe it or not, a month after this was painted, because the climate in Italy is very different to here, they used watercolour. All the paint was peeling off the walls. Verrio and his team of painters had to redo it all again, using that oil paints with egg yolk used in it, and they had to redo it. So this is not just a lovely foray of gods and goddesses, and when we come back to the staircase after our Tudor tour, I'm going to explain what this is all about for you. I'm actually going to show you the painter who loved to put himself in the artwork as well. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Did you enjoy the Field of the Cloth of Gold?
Yes,
and the
amazing.
embarkation?
No, it's incredible.
And they're original paintings
I know.
that have been restored.
It's incredible to see
Can
them.
I tell you a little story quickly about
Yes.
the Field of the Cloth of Gold? Did you notice when you looked at King Henry, all the rest of his entourage were looking straight ahead? Now he is on his horse and he's looking at you like this.
Yes.
That's because that painting was seized in the civil wars of the 1640s. You'll hear me talk about a lot about Oliver Cromwell today because he made his home at Hampton Court in the 1650s. So supporters of Oliver Cromwell seized that lovely painting of Henry and the Field of the Cloth of Gold, and they cut his head from it. The painting was squirreled away by royalist supporters, and when Charles II came back to the throne in the 1660s, they wanted to put that painting back on show. But there was a problem. Nobody knew where Henry's head was. So they found an old Tudor painting of the king. They cut out another head and stuck it on. Now, before that painting had restoration, we used to call it the Ring of Confidence after a toothpaste advert many years ago in the UK, because you could see a clear ring around Henry's head. Now that's been restored, they've eradicated that ring.
Amazing.
But that is the story, that's not Henry's original head. And that's why he's looking this way when everybody else is facing the way they are going.
So interesting.
There you go, little snippets
I love it.
of information. So you come back out into Clock Court, and you see Henry's wonderful astronomical clock. It arrived here in 1543, and if you've ever been to Prague or Belgium, you'll see these clocks dating from the same time. Now, the clock wasn't very accurate. It could lose time for up to 10 or 20 minutes. It's more accurate today, and it still works. Did King Henry care? No, he didn't. This was a status symbol, and if all the European kings and princes had these clocks, he wasn't going to be left out. Now, it was far more ostentatiously decorated in Henry's time, and as you can see, it's got only one hand with the sun on it. The Tudors believed, before the discoveries, that the earth revolved around the sun. They believed the sun revolved around the earth. So it's still very beautiful today. And once upon a time, if you take your eyes down to the suite of rooms underneath that astronomical clock, we had a lovely American lady from Philadelphia living here in the 1800s. Her husband had been a decorated military English hero. He died in the services for his country, and Caroline Offley Shaw, that was her name, was given apartments underneath the clock, rent-free for life here at Hampton Court. So there's not a nationality that I won't take round, or one of my guide lecturer friends, that do not have some affiliation with the palace.
Really?
Absolutely. Roman emperors, why were they here? They would have been highly gilded, colourful, because Henry admired them. Their achievements, they struck fear into the hearts of their enemies, and Henry wanted to think he had that kind of adulation.
Propaganda.
So that's why they're here. Propaganda. And the only symbol of the cardinal left in between those two Roman emperors by the clock. That's Wolsey's hat, two little cherubs holding it, and of course that would have disappeared from the palace when he fell out of favour with King Henry. It was the trusty Victorians who reinstated it. Okay, come up to the Great Hall.
Why
As
is
we go up to-
why is the clock more dependable now?
Because we
New workings?
we look after it.
Oh, okay.
No, the workings are all cogs and things. There's nothing electric, but
Okay.
we look after it, and it's maintained, meticulously maintained.
Okay.
So it's very, very accurate now compared to probably the rudimentary way they put them together. They were still a mean feat of engineering in those days,
Yeah.
but they weren't particularly accurate. Often called the clock of death, guys. Often called the clock of death, because James I's wife, and her name was Anne of Denmark. After she married James, who was notoriously gay, after she'd given him 8 children, she decided to go her own way, to leave him because he preferred the company of men. She made her home at Hampton Court Palace, dying at the age of only 40 in 1620 here. Now, the moment Anne of Denmark took her last breath, the astronomical clock stopped, and after every single, be it Grace and Favour resident or anybody here has taken their last breath, we have it on record, that clock stops and has to be restarted by hand. So we often call it the clock of death. And William's artwork, all the artwork is beautiful, but it is Victorian and not the original. You see a lot of lovely Tudor roses as we go into the Great Watching Chamber. If you don't know anything about it, I will explain how the Tudor rose came to be. Now, above the doorway here, that would have been all brightly gilded and colourful, Henry's insignia. And as we go into the Great Hall, all the lovely stained glass you're going to see, which is spectacular. It is Victorian and not the original, but I'll explain to you what happened to the original. But for now, we're going to talk about likenesses of the wives before we make it into the Great Hall, and Catherine of Aragon. By the time Henry successfully divorced her, they had been married 24 years. But how did King Henry manage to do this? Well, with the help of a very ruthless lawyer who he was now relying on for advice, his name was Thomas Cromwell, he decided to break with all the Pope's authority in Rome, and then the king could do exactly what he wanted to. I'm glossing over it, but it had massive repercussions in the English history, but Henry did not care. He successfully divorced her. She never saw her daughter again, and even when she died 3 months after she entered that nunnery, Henry did not allow her body to return to Spain. So very, very vindictive. Now, when she had her autopsy and she was cut open, they say she had a black mass around her heart, which could mean she had been poisoned. And the finger of suspicion pointed very firmly at the Boleyn family, because while she was still alive, she was a threat to Henry and Anne's marriage. No one in England liked Anne Boleyn at all. Her family were greedy and grasping, and she might have loved the king. They might have been very much in love. However, people's loyalty was to this woman who'd given Henry at least 8 children, but only one of them survived, and she'd been Henry's true queen for over 24 years. And then this woman comes along. Some of them called her a witch because she had 2 nail beds on her little finger, and they say she beguiled King Henry, promised him sons but didn't deliver. And their first child was a daughter, Princess Elizabeth. Henry was disappointed but put a brave face on it and said, if we can have a healthy daughter, healthy sons will follow. 2 sons did, but they were both miscarriages. And by the time they moved in here, little Elizabeth was 4, Anne was expecting, and although everything in the marriage wasn't great, they had high hopes that it was going to be a boy. But after Anne found Henry in a compromising position with her lady-in-waiting, Jane Seymour, she miscarried at 5 months, and it was a perfectly formed baby boy. She went on to get pregnant again, but after Henry was involved in a fatal jousting accident, I'm going to tell you more about that when we get to his painting, Anne miscarried again. Again, the little baby was a boy, but they say it was a boy. So after that time, Henry, who had moved heaven and earth to be with Anne, and guys, he courted her for 5 years until she would give in to his desires, until she knew she was going to be queen. Merely 1,000 days was she queen when Henry decided to get rid of her. Now after that second miscarriage, trumped-up charges were brought against Anne. You won't find a historian in England that believes she was guilty of her crimes. They were literally made up because Henry had had enough, and he couldn't just turn round and say to his courtiers, I just don't love her anymore. That would have made him look very foolish indeed, because he moved heaven and earth to be with her, even broke with the Pope's authority in Rome. So Anne was accused of having extramarital relationships with 3 of Henry's closest friends, of taking her musician, Mark Smeaton, to bed, and the worst accusation of all that she could not recover from was incest. They say she took her own brother, George Boleyn, to her, and that was after Henry was not visiting her bedchamber after the jousting accident, and they say she was desperate to have a son by fair means or foul. Now none of this makes sense. If Anne was being so active with 4 different men that weren't related to her, why on earth would she need to take her brother to her bed? And literally, she hadn't even been pronounced guilty of her crimes when Henry gave orders that a swordsman from France was to start to travel over to England to get to the Tower of London and take her head off with one clean sweep. Now, have you visited the tower ever?
We just did the other day. Yes.
Did you see the plaque to her on the floor of the chapel? So after she was beheaded, they hadn't even brought a coffin for her. So her little body was put into an arrow case and buried underneath the floor of the chapel at the Tower of London. So all very sad. And 11 days later, Henry marries Jane Smith. So he didn't let the grass grow under his feet, did he? Do come and have a sit there. I'm just savouring that new school children. So, now you might have seen TV programmes about the Great Hall, you might have seen films with Henry VIII sat at that big table down that end, eating copious amounts of food, lavish banquets, very important people in here, courtiers, foreign dignitaries, the minstrels playing up in the gallery. Yes, that all went on in here. However, not as frequently as you think. When Henry came to the palace for that 4 months of fun and pleasure, he would have thrown about 2 banquets in here at the most. They were lavish, they were expensive, they put extra taxation on the monetary funds and on the cooks that worked, well, the kitchen staff. So on a daily basis, this had a totally different purpose. This is where Henry's menial staff, big guys like Dad here, who did the bulk of the donkey work, they ate in here at 10 o'clock in the morning That's when they had their largest meal, 300 of them. Then when they finished, 300 more, and then at 4 o'clock it would all happen again. Now Henry and his queen would eat in their private rooms. I'm going to show you in a minute where they were.